So we were discussing Moll Flanders. We were around page 160. So the situation at this point is that Moll now has 200 pounds and she wanted to stop stealing, but she can't. So Defoe has represented Moll's career as a thief by giving instances of a great number of stealing, and we see that in each and every case Moll has been very inventive. That is, every theft is different, and thus we see that Moll succeeds immensely in the career of stealing because she cannot be caught. And why she cannot be caught? The most likely reason is that with her bringing up and education of a middle class woman, her looks, her demeanor, her manners are very different from ordinary thieves who are working class mostly, and people easily trust her. So she can cheat people much better than others. So we see that theft involves, at least in Moll's case, a lot of intelligence, a lot of inventive power, and an ability to cheat or defraud others, which suggests minimum amount of intelligence without which you cannot commit fraud upon another. So 200 pound is not a big sum of money, but even then with this amount Moll could have started doing some embroidery work or some other sewing work which would have kind of supplemented her income. But once she has tasted her success in the matter of stealing, in the matter of theft, she cannot now once again go back to her honest way of life. So I quote from the novel, "As poverty brought me into the mire, so avarice kept me in, till there is no going back." As avarice means greed. So poverty, because of poverty she began stealing, but once she became a successful thief, she became more and more greedy, and therefore she could not go back to the honest ways of life. As to the arguments which my reason dictated for persuading me to lay down, avarice stepped in and said, go on, you have had very good luck, go on till you have gotten 400 or 500 pounds, and then you shall leave off. So her greed would dictate her to go on stealing with a target of amassing 400 or 500 pounds. And then you can stop. But we would realize that this would be a limit that would always be stretched. So once Moll reaches that target, then the limit of amassing wealth will stretch further. So because of her greed, she would never be able to stop stealing. Thus I that was once in the devil's clutches was held fast there as with a charm, and had no power to go without the circle, till I was engulfed in labyrinths of trouble too great to get out at all. So from a Christian point of view, Moll believes that she is caught in the clutches of the devil, and she is kept there with a charm or magic, and she cannot go outside the circle. Without means outside. On the other hand, gets mired and gets lost in the labyrinth. She realizes that it would involve too much trouble for her. So her future holds trouble, that she realizes. But because of her greed, she cannot get out of it. We remember that Moll was assigned a partner a woman partner by the governess. Moll's partner is caught and taken to Newgate and executed. So when these things happen, that the partners are always caught but Moll is never caught. So you may realize that all other thieves or her professional colleagues, they were becoming jealous of her and they were becoming also angry with her because others were, being arrested, being executed, but nothing was happening to Moll. She was very successful. Then a number of criminal activities. I have indicated those with black dots. So the purpose of this summary is not to stop you from reading the novel, but to have a kind of a graph or a chart before you indicating how the novel develops. So Moll visits the house on fire and takes all the valuables pretending to be a maid sent by a neighboring lady. So here you see that there is theft as well as fraud, because Moll pretends to be a maid sent by a neighboring lady, so she comes as a helping hand, and the house on fire, so the people of that house or the lady of that house, she is extremely troubled. So Moll finds it an opportune moment to defraud people, when people kind of lose their presence of mind. So that is the moment when the fraud would strike. This was the greatest and the worst prize that ever I was concerned in, for indeed, though as I have said above, I was hardened now beyond the power of all reflection in other cases, yet it really touched me to the very soul. I say, I confess, the inhumanity of this action moved me very much. Page 163. So Defoe plants these pangs of conscience in Moll from time to time, so that the reader does not lose sympathy for her. Okay. So as we see in Macbeth, Macbeth's pangs of conscience against his criminal activities make the reader sympathetic towards him. So here also, the reader must sympathize with the protagonist, the heroine. So she is committing crime, she is defrauding others, but when she says that I felt it to be the worst, theft, and I knew that my soul was hardened, but yet it touched me to the very soul, then we believe her. And this is also a way of believing that there is always some goodness in every person. So even if a person may be a criminal or maybe a fraud or whatever, a robber, but there is some goodness in every person which is suppressed or which gets suppressed because of the circumstances. So the purpose of the novelist is not to uphold or support crime, but to indicate that we should not think of criminals as inhuman. And society is very often intolerant towards criminals, as we can see that there is often street justice. If a poor woman is caught, stealing something, or a poor man is caught stealing something, people, if they catch them, they begin to beat them up, and sometimes the victim dies because of this. Instead of handing them over to the law or to the police, people beat them up and kill them. So that is mob justice or street justice, which is no justice. So why shouldn't one beat or kill, let alone kill, why shouldn't one beat a thief? Now you know that beating thieves or criminals is forbidden even for the police, even for the authorities, though they do not stick to that very often, without that, but it is against the law. You cannot or you should not beat people up, that is, cause physical harm to anybody. So the whole idea of prison changed over the years. Michel Foucault has written history of crime, of criminality, and the institutions that developed, particularly in the 18th century, to suppress crime. In his book Discipline and Punish. So the whole point is that Foucault suggested that our society became a carceral society. I am writing in the chat box. Carceral society, which means society of prisons where people are kept in prison. Foucault, of course, looks at the general history of growth of institutions where individuals are controlled by some authority. Institutions like schools, residential schools, of course, hospitals, infirmaries, orphanages, boys' homes. So various kinds of institutions, asylums where the mentally sick people are kept. So in all these asylums, in all these orphanages, residential schools, physical or corporal punishment was the rule rather than the exception. People kept in such institutions, they would be often beaten up and punished in this manner. Now, in modern times, this conception of prison or of institutions has changed, and today prisons are not called prisons or jails anymore. They are called correctional homes. That is where people are corrected for their wrong behavior. They are taught the right behavior. However, change in name does not mean that the institutions have really changed overnight. So there are many practices which still linger, which are undesirable. So the issue is how to treat a criminal as a human being. And human beings make mistakes. Now we may also inquire why theft has always been looked upon as such a grave crime, particularly in England, from whom we have learned this in India also. Why was theft considered a grave crime? Even petty theft. We have this issue raised, as probably I told you, in Thomas More's Utopia, written in the 16th century. Raphael Hythlodaeus, the traveller, criticizes the laws of England for petty theft. The cruel punishment or justice or injustice meted out to thieves. Thieves were hanged. Thieves were executed. And then then the act against the vagabonds, that also criminalized movement of people from one place to another without legitimate cause. So who would move from one place to another? Travelers, businessmen who move from one place to another for the purpose of business. They were, of course, given the license. But ordinary people, working class people, they were not supposed to move from one place to another. They were not supposed to move from one place to another, and because they were supposed to carry on the same trade as their ancestors did in their villages, to be apprenticed to a local craftsman or to do agricultural work in the land nearby. And if they were caught, but when they didn't get employment in their village, they were forced to move out. And if they were caught, then they were punished, sometimes hanged. And because of the fear of this, many vagabonds they became outlaws, and they started to live in the woods, in the forest. So from which we have the folk story of Robin Hood stories. And sturdy beggars were considered criminals in the eyes of law. We find a representation of this sturdy beggar in Shakespeare's King Lear. Edgar takes the disguise of the bedlamite beggar. Okay, so here we see that Defoe points out that criminals are not to be treated in an inhuman way. But at the same time, he does not suggest that we forgive the criminals, because they do great harm to the society. Well, the question that I was raising, why was crime considered, petty theft was considered such a grave crime in England? Because it went against the principle of private wealth, which was the most sacrosanct principle in capitalism, private property. So an Englishman could defend his home like a castle because it was his private property, and any kind of trespassing into that home would be considered a criminal act. In America, because of the liberal gun laws, people keep guns in their houses, and anybody trespassing their house, they could be shot at legally. So you may realize that in capitalist countries or under capitalistic system, private property is the highest god. This principle cannot be violated. So even petty theft is considered a crime under capitalism, which is of course unjust. One must take into account the poverty of the people who are forced to commit petty theft. In Brecht's play, we see that a little boy steals bread. The Good Woman of Szechuan. We see that little boy steals bread and he is arrested for that petty theft. So Brecht exposes the defects of capitalism. Moll has two new partners, a couple who rob together, lay together, so now they hang together and they are ended by new partnership. So she became a partner to a couple of criminals who did everything together. But they were also caught together and Moll was not caught. So we see here this humor that they rob together, lay together and they hang together. Now this is grisly humor or bitter humor, you may say, but still it is humorous. It trivializes human life. The people being hanged is not a trivial matter. But we see that when Moll is imprisoned in Newgate, then Defoe, through Moll, observes that people become oblivious of the great danger ahead, the danger of losing their lives, even in prison. So they fun and frolic, they make jokes, and they do not seem to be worried at all. And that was one of greatest amazements, greatest surprises for Moll. Perhaps that is a defense mechanism of the criminals, even those who were on death row. that is, who are to be executed, even they, make jokes, fun and frolic. That could be a defense mechanism. Or it is possible that they do not realize the value of their lives, and they do not realize the gravity of the loss of human lives. And of course, this is a reflection of society which does not value human lives. Like our society today, do we value human lives? People are dying every day for so many foolish reasons. And among many foolish reasons, there are natural causes, thunder and so on, people are dying. But political violence, what can be more foolish than that? It is unheard of in most Western countries. But in our country, people constantly die because of political violence. Village people who have no role over administration, who have no power in anything, they become the cannon fodder or the soldiers of the electoral battle, and they die. So, human stupidity can stoop to any level. Moll was shy of shoplifting and found burglary out of her way. So even though Moll was shy of shoplifting, we will see that Moll does some shoplifting, and actually Moll, when finally she is caught because of shoplifting. So maybe that was one of her weak points. And burglary needs a lot more courage, and also burglary is much more foolish than stealing, because burglars try to commit their crime. They commit their crime by intimidating others. But the game of intimidation is something, open to everybody. So if you have a gun, you can intimidate others. But you do not know if the other person also has a gun or not. So once you violate the law and take out the gun against somebody, then you also give others the right to take out their guns in defense. Therefore, burglary is always more risky and difficult, and also more foolish, because the chances of being caught are much more. Moll tips about illegal storage of Flanders lace to a customs house officer and gets her share, and also cheats by underreporting and keeping some goods aside for herself. Another clever way. Flanders lace from Flanders in Holland would be smuggled into England, avoiding customs duty, and the customs officers will have their network of spies. So Moll joined this network and provided the officer with tips as to where such goods are stored. So how will she know it? From her network of thieves, of course, and probably she would herself go and steal some of the material herself. So what Moll did is that when she reported this to the officer, she would get some commission as a reward. She got that, but over and above that, she underreported the amount of stock in that shop. And the stock that she did not report, she would steal that. So the officer won't know. So she would be doubly benefited. Moll steals a gentlewoman's gold watch. The lady cries pickpocket. Moll narrowly escapes. So the purpose of such incidents is to represent the dangers of the profession. Sometimes she escapes very narrowly. On page 168 we see the career of the governess. This is something perhaps we should look at a greater detail because Apart from Moll, the other important woman criminal in this novel is the governess. Through these two characters, basically, Defoe gives us an insight into the criminal lives of women in the 18th century. Okay, so on page 168 to 169, there is a detailed narration of the career of the governess. We do not have such detailed narration of anybody else's career in the novel apart from Moll. So you read this. I am just reading the last paragraph. I mentioned thus much of the history of this woman here, that is the governess, the better to account for the concern she had in the wicked life I was now leading, into all the particulars of which she led me as it were by the hand, and gave me such directions, and I so well followed them, that I grew the greatest artist of my time, and worked myself out of every danger with such dexterity, that when several more of my comrades ran themselves into Newgate presently, and by that time they had been half a year at the trade, I had now practiced upwards of 5 years, and the people at Newgate did not so much as know me. They had heard much of me indeed, and often expected me there, but I always got off, though many times in the extremest danger. So the importance of this paragraph is that the governess was Moll's teacher as well as model in her career of crime. And she says that she developed such dexterity, such skill because of her instructions. And she calls herself the greatest artist of my time. So you can see that she even takes some pride in her skill of stealing because she calls herself an artist. And here we come to know that she has been practicing crime now for 5 years, and yet she was not caught. Whereas she tells us that her colleagues in the trade, they would be caught after 6 months. So the authorities at Newgate prison, they heard a lot about Moll, but they did not actually even know her name. One of the greatest dangers I was now in was that I was too well known among the trade, and some of them whose hatred was owing rather to envy than any injury I had done them began to be angry that I should always escape when they were always catched and hurried to Newgate. These were they that gave me the name of Moll Flanders. So she did not have, the real name was not known to anybody. She became popular by this name Moll Flanders, and she uses this nickname to write this novel. I called myself Mrs. Flanders when I sheltered myself in the Mint, but these rogues never knew, nor could I ever learn how they came to give me the name or what the occasion of it was. Okay, so I actually quoted this paragraph here also. Moll steals in the dress of a man to conceal her identity. So that is another novelty. She disguises herself as a man and steals. The governess also gives her a male comrade who does not have any idea that his partner is a woman. So you may imagine if that male thief knew that Moll was a woman, then how he would have behaved with her. So obviously Moll was in great danger, but she was a very good con artist. Con artist means one who can defraud others, cheat others. So she played the role of a man very well. The man is caught while stealing silk from a draper's shop. Moll escapes when chased. She enters the governor's house and changes into the clothes of a woman so that she is not caught. So this was another narrow escape. people gave her the chase. She was in the dress of a man. So they were looking for a man. And she enters the governess's house and changes into the clothes of a woman. But people come into the house and inquire about the thief. And Moll is not suspected because she was now a woman. So people had no way of identifying her. The partner promised to help catch the other thief. That is, when the partner was caught by the police, if the criminal helps the authorities in catching others, then they are usually rewarded. So the partner gave the promise that she would help the police in catching Moll. So Moll was in great danger. But he did not know her name or sex. He thought that Moll was a man. So how would he help? He was hanged. So he could not satisfy the police, so he was hanged. Meanwhile, Moll had removed herself to Dunstable in apprehension of being caught. Even after such grave dangers, Moll could not stop stealing. She steals damask silk, gives it to her companion. She is caught and Moll escapes once again on page 174. So damask silk is very precious, and we see here that thieves operate in a gang. So the person who steals something does not keep it with her or him for a long time, but passes it on to another, so that people cannot, catch the person red-handed with the goods. So Moll stole the silk and passed it on to another woman, and she was caught. At trial, her companion says that Moll Flanders gave her the piece of silk. So the judges realized that the woman was not lying. She got the goods from Moll Flanders. So they did not execute her, but transported her. By now, all witnesses who knew Moll as a thief were hanged or transported. So that was safe for Moll. Those who were witnesses to her crime, they were either dead or they were transported, so they could not cause her any harm. Moll becomes bold. She goes to steal from a house on fire once again. So earlier she was successful. She defrauded the lady of the house. Now she is not successful, but she gets injured in fire. So it indicates, the risks of the trade. At Bartholomew Fair, a gentleman befriends Moll, drinks too much and sleeps with her. Moll robs him of his gold watch, purse of gold, periwig, sword, snuff box and gloves, and escapes. So a gentleman is a propertied person, so he carried with him a lot of valuable things. And we see here the weaknesses of men. Many gentlemen are sometimes they have inordinate lust which they cannot control, and then they fall prey to such prostitutes or women who rob them. So this man was drunk, and Moll robbed him of his valuables. However, this incident is interesting because the governess finds a better way to exploit the man or continue exploiting him. The governess finds out the gentleman and puts him in a relationship with Moll in order to extract more money from him. So the gentleman probably developed some kind of weakness for Moll, and the governess put the man into a relationship with her. So you see how men can easily be exploited if they are too weak in character. The relationship lasted a year, after which he did not come back. So the man disappeared somewhere. But for 1 year, the governess and Moll could exploit the man and extract money from him. Then Moll steals a bundle from the coach station, that is bus station. People travel with their valuables in bundles. At that time, modern luggages or suitcases were not there. So people used to carry things in bundles. Even in our country, I remember in my childhood, during travel, one would have bundles sometimes. Moll receives a parcel from a warehouse meant for other people by cheating. Another innovative way of robbing. A parcel had come in some other's name. Moll, cheats the person by telling the postman that she is the person for which the parcel is intended, and she steals it or receives it. Then there is the funny situation of Moll being falsely charged with stealing in a shop. Now, of course, Moll visited that shop with the intention of stealing. But luckily for her, there was another woman who stole something valuable before her. So that woman was a widow. Moll went there in the dress of a widow. So the shopkeeper thought that Moll was a thief and complained against her. But Moll was very bold in this case because she did not steal, so she asked for compensation for harassment, which she received. So this is a funny situation where a criminal, exploits the system and receives money for nothing. One day Moll was out in a widow's dress. People were chasing a thief who was a widow, stealing from a mercer's shop. The mercer and his men mistakenly caught Moll as the thief. Later the other widow was also caught, but then she again escaped. Moll extracted heavy compensation from the mercer for harassing her. So the way Moll asked for compensation and the shopkeeper is harassed is described in a very humorous manner. Moll was now probably the richest thief in England. She had 700 pounds, besides clothes, rings, some plate and 2 gold watches. So as I told you that the novelist gives us details about the amount of property that Moll owns at any particular time. So 700 pounds is a very good amount, and besides that she had many other valuables. So we can see that she has now 2 gold watches. So one of these watches she would give to her son in Virginia. Moll dresses herself like a beggar woman. She steals a horse. Another funny incident. She did not know what to do with the horse, nor did the governess. So she sends it back. And the animals have a way to find their way home. So the horse, when it is let loose, it trots back, to its home, to its owner. Moll gets to know counterfeiters and burglars, but she avoids these traits. Counterfeiting. So the purpose of mentioning it is to mention the development of different kinds of crime in England. So the rise of capitalism coincided with the rise of crime and the rise of poverty. Counterfeiting was always a very risky business. That is, printing counterfeit currency, counterfeit money. So Moll once got in touch with men who do it, and she was invited to participate, but she refused because she found it to be too risky. Moll steals a packet of lace when the shopkeepers are distracted as the queen is coming. So the queen also becomes a character in the novel. When in England, in London, the queen comes somewhere or any royalty is coming or riding, people gather to see them. And that provides an opportunity for thieves and pickpockets to do their business. Moll chats up with a young aristocratic lady named Lady Betty and steals the gold watch of her little sister. So here we see how Moll is easily accepted in society by women of class because of her looks, her speech, her demeanor, her training. She can also speak a little bit of French. So aristocratic women would trust her, and Moll would exploit this trust, and she stole a necklace from the little sister. She stole the gold watch of her sister. Moll plays in a gaming house with gentlemen's money, cheats them and brings home 73 guineas. So gaming, that is gambling. So even in gambling or card games, Moll would cheat the men, which means that she was adept in the skills which ordinarily would be the domain of men. She takes money from gentlemen, and with their money she plays the game, she wins, and she cheats them all and brings home 73 guineas. Page 206. I grew more hardened and audacious than ever, and the success I had made my name as famous as any thief of my sort ever had been at Newgate and in the Old Bailey. So Old Bailey is the name of the court, famous for trying criminals. We get many references to Old Bailey in Dickens's novels. So Moll became a very famous thief, a bold, audacious thief, and well known in the prison of Newgate as well as the criminal court of Old Bailey. She steals from a linen draper. Again, she steals a trunk from a Dutchman in Harwich. She returns to London with the trunk. So she targets the traveller, the Dutch traveller in England. You see, the foreigners are always exposed to some risk in a different country than their own. The thieves and robbers, they target the foreign travelers. So Moll targets this Dutchman, steals his suitcase, but she does not come back directly to her place in London, but she takes a circuitous tour from Harwich and finally comes back to London with that suitcase or trunk. Each of Moll's stories is useful as it teaches how to guard against such surprises. So Defoe writes the novel in a moralistic vein, or we may say that this morality of the novel is his excuse of describing crime. A quotation: "The moral indeed of all my history is left to be gathered by the senses and judgment of the reader." Page 211. So Moll writes this novel or her autobiography. Why does she write it? She lays down her criminal adventures so that the reader, or perhaps young women readers, they can learn from her story not how to steal, but the consequences of crime, the morals, how she suffered the consequences of her crime or the pangs of her conscience. And in the course of this, she also narrates the reader the story of a helpless, impoverished woman. If she succeeds as a thief and becomes rich, she does that only by contending against the world. A world which is unsympathetic, a world which marginalizes her, which tries to exploit her in every way, also sexually. So, Moll's story has a lot of morals to offer to the reader, but also to society in general, by pointing out its defects and the areas in which society may be improved. Okay. So Defoe makes it very explicit that my story has a moral. On the Christmas Day evening, Moll enters a silversmith's shop in Foster Lane, where she is caught. So examples of Moll being caught are few, but there is one such example here. By chance, an alderman comes to the shop. An alderman is an officer of the municipality, like a councillor, and is asked to arbitrate. Therefore, the shopkeepers ask him to judge. Moll says she came to buy and shows a silver spoon that she had in her bag. So you see how resourceful she was. She even kept money and silver spoon valuables like this in her bag, so that in case she is caught, she can show them and prove that she was not a thief. When the alderman sees money in her purse, he believes her and lets her go. So apart from the fact that she has money and she has valuables in her bag, she herself appears as a middle class woman, as an educated woman more or less, and therefore she can impress the judges very easily, and particularly male judges. She has a great influence on men. And finally, she is caught for the last time, which will lead to her imprisonment. 3 days later, she enters another shop. So we see that she does not take any lesson from being caught. She should have stopped stealing for a number of days to avoid the risk, because once she is caught, then people would keep doubting her. But she is reckless. After 3 days, she again tries to steal, and she steals 2 pieces of flowered silk. 2 girls catch her. She is brought to Newgate. Moll is melancholic and despairing. So she is now very unhappy, truly unhappy and despairing that she is finally imprisoned in Newgate. But of course, the prison authorities still do not know her name, or cannot identify her as Moll. Okay, so I'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask.